And we are live. I'm Shae Russell from mining.com.au, and thank you for joining me today for the webinar we are hosting for True North Copper. Today we have Bevan Jones, the Managing Director, and Barry Jones, the Exploration Manager, taking you through an update on what's happening with the company. Gentlemen, it is lovely to have you. Thank you for being here.
Thanks very much, Shae. Appreciate being invited.
Now, everybody, we will be taking questions live at the end of today's chat. So please, at the end of today's webinar, so please pop your questions into the chat while both Bevan and Barry are speaking. And without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Bevan to start the webinar.
Yeah, okay. Thanks very much, Shae. So, look, I guess for everybody that's tuned in, there's a look. The last week we released a set of results from our drilling at Mt Oxide, and so we thought it was a great opportunity to reconnect with everybody. You know, look, True North has been through a very busy period. In January, we relisted after being into voluntary administration and recapitalisation, which was a process which allowed us to focus on our exploration program. So what we're trying to do now is to go out and tell everyone about what we've been up to for the last 6 months, and look, it's been action packed. So the first 3 months was basically realigning the organisation and getting our permits and all of the precursors that are required for exploration in place. And because of the where it is in the country, it's during the middle of the wet season. So as soon as the wet season's finished, we started our drilling program at Great Australia Mines, which I will cover off in a little while, and then moved on to Mt Oxide. And the results from Mt Oxide of today have brought Barry Jones, our exploration manager. He'll take us through them, and he'll be able to answer any specifically geological questions on that. But in terms of TNC and where to and what we're focused on at the moment, we actually have a number of lease packages. The two main areas that we've been focusing on are the Cloncurry Copper Project in the bottom right-hand side of the screen there. You can see that, which is made up of a number of leases, and we've been doing some interesting exploration in that the last couple of months, and also our Mt Oxide project. So the Mt Oxide project is a highly prospective system. It's underexplored, and it's a large system. It sits north of the Capricorn Copper 29 Metals property and north of Mount Isa. So all of our exploration and operational areas sit either side of Mount Isa in the highly prospective Mount Isa region. So we're in really good country. We're really a part of the community in the areas that we're working in, and we've got look, this highly prospective area at Mt Oxide with multiple trends that we're targeting. It's about 10 kilometres of strike length on the Dorman Fault that we're specifically looking at, and we already have a resource called Vero that's actually in that area. So what we're trying to do is to grow the scale of our organisation along that strike. At Cloncurry, we've got an existing mining operation at Great Australia. We have a heap leach, solvent extraction and crystal plant in that area where we can treat oxide material, and we have a number of prospects that are all mine ready to go after we paused mining late last year. But the exciting thing is that that's not just what True North is looking at in the region. We've got more to look at, and we'll touch on that. So, you know, look, apart from being in a tier 1 jurisdiction, our focus has been since the recapitalisation. We've got a strong balance sheet now. We've paid off our previous debt position. We got a refreshed board and management team, and in particular in the board, Paul Cronin has joined us as a non-executive chairman. It's awesome to have Paul on board at True North Copper. Now, Paul's joined us. He's recently came back to Australia from his time in Bosnia, where he was working with the Adriatic. And it's great to have a person of Paul's calibre coming back to TNC to help us shape the way forward. There's a lot of future in this region in particular. True North Copper is focused on copper in the northwest part of Queensland, listed on the ASX. There are not a lot of other opportunities of copper-only players in Australia, and True North sits right there in amongst, like we like to think of it as elephant country, and we're just in the middle of it, trying to continue to grow our mineral resources. Okay, so next slide, please. So what we're trying to do at Mt Oxide is to continue our knowledge along the dormant fault. We've been through a process where last year we did some geophysics and rock chip sampling. This year we've got over 6,000 metre RC drilling program that we're focusing on, and the first of those results have just been made available. Okay, so we were able to have great success from 3 holes so far that we've got the results back from, and look, what it does is further reinforce our point of view that this is a regionally significant geological area that's along the dormant fault, and we're really excited about the results that we've got. At Cloncurry, we're able to continue to drill at Great Australia and continue to increase our mineral inventory in that area as well. So that's been really great. And look, corporately, we've been looking at how to continue to focus our exploration, but also looking at regional consolidation as well. The Mount Isa Cloncurry region is quite set up for regional consolidation. There's a lot of small players in the area, similar to True North Copper, and we think that we can bring an edge to the operations in the area and start to look at how to pull in enough scale to actually make a highly successful operational area as well. So next slide, please. So in particular, with the Mt Oxide project, you can see this little diagram. There's a number of operations that sit around us. Capricorn Copper is the biggest one, but we've also got Lady Annie as well. And we're not far at all from Mount Isa and the entire infrastructure associated with Glencore and the Mount Isa region. So look, we're in a great spot. We really think that the Mt Oxide project is highly prospective. We're seeing great results. We've already got a 15 million tonnes at 1.46% copper resource in the area, and this program was really, how can we demonstrate this is district scale? And so look, we're well on our way from that. If we go to the next slide, please. So I touched on it before. There's an existing resource at Vero. The Vero resource was originally found by the previous owners of this lease package, Perilia. We bought that off Perilia. They've done a lot of drilling in this particular area. Their drilling was really concentrated around Vero, and they really didn't have the opportunity to explore further on. So when True North took over this lease package, we did a number of drill holes in the area, 12 diamond holes, to further increase the amount of information that we had over the Vero deposit. And we got some excellent results. There was one hole, hole 217, returned a result of over 66 metres at nearly 5% copper. It was an awesome result for that year. It was, one of the best intercepts worldwide. And what it does show is that this area is it's common for very high grade zones within the ore body. So it gives us a lot of faith that that when we start drilling into other areas, that we will see similar results as well. And the results that we see coming out of the Aquila drilling really does back that up. So just to give you a bit of a flavour, what we did was we went out. We did a lot of surface mapping, looking at our lease package on a regional basis, soil geochemistry, rock chip sampling, and IP survey, and that's helped us really target the drilling that we've been doing. So in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see a little diagram. That was the result of last year's IP survey, and what it was doing is really pointing out that there's a lot of these high chargeability anomalies in the area. So we've been busy identifying those high chargeability areas, and this drilling that we've been doing this year is really been focusing on these areas to then go and test them. If we go to the next slide. What we see that on the right hand side there, underneath Camp Gossams, you can see that there's some coloured little squares. Those little squares represent surface samples, rock chip samples that we've taken. What we're doing is looking for pathfinder elements that suggest that there's mineralisation underneath it, and those pathfinder elements are sort of like signatures of the area that are similar to Vero, similar to what we see at Capricorn Copper in those areas. And from that, we've been able to go back and target our IP survey. In the bottom little map there, you can see the green section there. That's the Vero resource. As you can see, it's quite small along that entire strike. So what we said is that we really think that this is a regional play, not just a single Vero deposit. So we've gone through and identified additional areas that we wanted to follow up. Now, what made us think that there was more scale here? Well, when we look at the Capricorn Copper 29 metals discovery, you can see that it's multiple shoots along the fault line, and some of the shoots outcrop and are visible from the surface. Some of them are blind. And so, look, we pick up the ones which come, the outcrop, obviously, through the rock chip sampling, etc. But some of the other ones you can't see. You need to do surveys like the IP survey that we've just done. Can we go to the next slide, please? So, in our IP survey, which was done last year, you can see those green lines that intersect the dormant fault. As you go from Camp Gossams to Vero to Ria, and then Aquila, and then Mount Gordon. So there's various zones there. So we did a number of IP survey lines along there. We've come up with some targets, and now we're in the process of doing this 8,000 metre drill program. Now, up until now, we've done about 6,000 metres of that, and so far we've only had the results back from 3 holes at Aquila. Those 3 holes have been awesome. they've been spectacular results. And so what we will be doing is now pausing and rethinking what we're going to do in the area. The drill was scheduled to move off site, head to Cloncurry, and I'll take you through the program in Cloncurry. Once it's finished there, it'll be headed back to continue that drilling program. So look, this is not the end of the results in this area. We've still got plenty to come. Okay, so next slide, please. Now I'm going to hand over to Barry, and he's going to take you through what we saw when we were with the results from Aquila.
Great, thanks, Bevan. Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. I'm pleased to be able to present these results or our exploration success that we've had at Aquila in Mt Oxide, where we've identified a significant new copper, cobalt, and silver discovery. This discovery underscores the potential of the Mt Oxide system and validates our targeted exploration strategy that we're currently using up in the Mt Oxide area. Aquila is located about 4 kilometers northeast of the existing Vera resource and sits in the same mineralized corridor, the dormant fault system. The structural trend along this discovery continues for at least 2 kilometers with multiple structural strands offshooting. You can see those northeast, southwest trending faults coming off the dormant fault system. And this could quite easily extend that potential strike length of this discovery at Aquila to well beyond 2 kilometers at this stage. So this discovery is perhaps most similar to the mammoth ore body at Capricorn Copper, which is located 20 kilometers south, and similar in the way that it's hosted in the same lithologies, in sandstone and quartzites, and it's also along the same structural trend, the dormant fault system. The separation, however, of Aquila from the Vera system, combined with the scale of what we've just drilled and what we've just discovered, strongly suggests that this Aquila is a brand new discovery and a standalone deposit. It's not a Vera 2.0, it's completely a deposit within its own right. The Aquila Prospect was generated through a systematic exploration approach, which was led by True North Copper in collaboration with Global Ore Discovery, who have been instrumental in our exploration success up in the Mt Oxide and the Cloncurry area. Specifically, we targeted using a combination of geological techniques. So as Bevan has mentioned, we use structural mapping, rock chip sampling, and geophysical modeling, namely the MIMDAS IP survey. And what's quite interesting is that the 3 lines MIMDAS IP survey in Aquila were funded by the Queensland Government's Collaborative Exploration Initiative, CEI, demonstrating strong government support for unlocking new discoveries in the Mount Oxide region, and has proven successful. Only 3 MIMDAS IP lines were run across Aquila initially, and every single line produced a really strong chargeability and conductivity anomaly. Right? All our discovery drill holes that we've done to date were targeting these IP anomalies along these lines. And the success of each of these holes, it's validated once again our geophysics-led strategy and using available geological data in order to identify new mineralized zones. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So to date, TNC have completed 3 holes that we've had the assay results returned on. These 3 holes have proven a major new copper, cobalt, and silver discovery within the 100% owned Mt Oxide project. This is the first ever drilling at Aquila, and already the results are transformative. Each of the Aquila discovery holes, MOX 231, 232, and 233, were designed around these IP anomalies, which you can see in the picture there. The coincidentals between the chargeability as well as the grades that we've highlighted, there's a fantastic correlation between the two. These IP anomalies sit within the Surprise Creek Formation, adjacent to the MGFZ. All right. Every hole intercepted a broad zone of copper, cobalt, and silver mineralization. The mineralization was hosted in sedimentary rocks, shale, sandstones, and quartzites that have been structurally deformed and closely associated with brecciated, fractured rock zones and hematite alteration, which this combination has created a pathway and traps for copper-bearing fluids to be trapped and create this deposit. The drill intercepts from Aquila, including 145 meters of mineralization in a single hole, confirm a robust, continuous copper-dominated system with cobalt and silver as valuable byproducts. The main copper minerals include chalcopyrite and chalcocite, often occurring both as disseminations as well as vein fillings. The cobalt mineralization is carolite, and these are associated with the sulfides in the system. So the early drilling results, you can see a few of them up on the slide at the moment that we're demonstrating, have shown 30 meters at 2.5% copper from just 20 meters below surface. So that's practically from surface. We have 2.5% copper in MOX 233 with a high-grade zone of 10 meters at 5.31% copper. Truly an outstanding result. Some of the other results are 53 meters at 1.18% copper with 0.13% cobalt from 86 meters in MX 232. This includes a 5-meter zone of 4.3% copper at 0.52% cobalt. And in MX 231, we have 16 meters at 1.25% copper at depth with a broader zone of 34 meters at 0.71% copper. So these are truly, well, I mean, these sort of results having been seen in the Mt Oxide area in quite a while, and for a new discovery, they're phenomenal. I'd like to refer to it as a bit of a dripping roast. So they show continuity in both thickness and grade, and are consistent with cobalt and silver enrichment. So together they point to the emergence of a robust multi-metal system in Aquila. And this system is at least 150 meters wide. In some places where we've got this convergence of these faults, it can go up to 500 meters wide. And it starts at surface, continues at depth. So the ore body is open at depth, and it's open along a strike, which I've said is about 2 kilometers long. Importantly, this discovery validates our exploration model. We now have a methodology in which we know how to find it, we know how to continue finding it, and it's proved successful in this case. So this will allow us to develop this prospect along strike, and as well as understand the full width and extent of this deposit. Can we go to the next slide, please? So this is just some of the key takeaways, and just want to recap. One, the system is open in all directions, as you can see on the slide there. It's open at depth, it's open to the north, and it's open to the south. There's broad, high-grade, copper-dominant mineralization that is coincident with the IP anomalies. There's consistent cobalt and silver credits that are enhancing the values. There's a mineralized zone of between 150 to 500 meters wide, starting from shallow depths. There's a potential strike length in excess of 2 kilometers. There's a strong similarity between the mammoth ore body of Capricorn copper, which has been mined successfully in the past. So overall, it's got the makings of a really, really exciting deposit. But what is most impressive is, this is the first pass drill program, and already Aquila is emerging as a potential game changer. With strong upside, scalability, and it clearly validates our exploration model. And so we look forward to rapidly advancing this discovery and unlocking its full potential. And I think in the next slide, if you can go to the next slide, please, I'll explain to you what our plan is. So after drilling these discovery holes and that, we've decided that we needed to stop and really look at our existing exploration and make sure that what we were doing was in line with how this discovery came about. So the white lines you can see on the slide there indicate the existing IP lines. So we now are developing a program of between 7,000 and 8,000 meters of IP line to be done to infill between these lines. And we'll use this to generate a 3D geophysical model to help us target. And along with that, we've sort of planned some additional drill holes in the south, an additional 1,200 meters of RC drilling, where we have some rock chip sampling that has showed some anomalous values. So we'll use that to sort of help with the initial extension of this project. So that's our aim going forward. But the idea is to take a systematic view on exploration and make sure that we've covered all the bases, and that every meter we drill is meaningful at this stage. That's all from the discovery side of things at Aquila. Bevan, I don't know if you want to take over on the next slide.
Yeah, no worries, Barry. If we go to the next slide, please. Okay, so heading to Cloncurry, we've had a round of drilling recently, so we've got some results, and then I'll talk about what we're doing right now. So if we go to the next slide, please. So one of the things that we often get is people thinking that our what we're doing at Cloncurry is restricted to Great Australia Mine, which look is right next to Cloncurry. It's been there for over 100 years. It was originally found by Ernest Henry, and that is where our office and our facilities are. But we actually have a much broader package of leases, and this is the first opportunity since the recapitalisation for us to start exploring outside of that region. So we've done the first drilling program around Great Australia, and then we're moving to Wallace North to continue to drill that out, and we're also looking at Salisbury later on as well. So if we go to the next slide. So our objective at Great Australia was to do 17 holes, 3,500 metre RC program, and all of those holes were targeted into high chargeability anomalies. They weren't just step out drill holes that were like targeting increasing the existing operation. It was to really stop and have a very good hard look around this area and start to find out what else we have here. The outcome of that has been that we found a number of new areas that we want to continue to look at, and what we think they prove is that there is more scale around Great Australia. For the areas in particular, Copper Mine Creek, Copperhead, Paddock Lode, Orphan Shear, all produced areas of new mineralisation that we didn't know existed, and it is actually really exciting, the results that we got from that. I guess in terms of grade and thicknesses of ore body or intersects is very, very similar to the existing pit shells, etc. So it was very, very consistent in that respect. So if we go to the next slide, this area in particular, Copper Mine Creek, which was in between Great Australia and Taipan, so an area that I guess it was never previously thought that there was mineralisation. The IP survey has shown that there's this high chargeability zone. Unfortunately, the one hole that we did drill into this zone didn't quite intersect the centre of the high chargeability, but it's come across 31 metres of sulphides at the base of the hole, which says we really want to go back and re-drill this hole. But the most exciting part about this hole is that we intercepted the 12 metres at 0.65%, which was unexpected, but it does correlate with what we think is in the area. And so our next step here is to go back and re-drill this area so that we can actually intersect the high chargeability anomaly. Next slide, please. And within the Copperhead area, also that area is to the north of the existing Great Australia pit. It wasn't previously thought to contain mineralisation. We've now drilled a couple of holes through there. We've intersected mineralisation in the area, and we're now starting to develop a bigger picture of what that looks like. But it certainly looks as though the Great Australia pit will expand as well. Okay, next slide, please. So this is where we're drilling right today. Today, there's a drill rig drilling at the Wallace North Copper Gold Project. Wallace North is an area of historic mining. In the right-hand side of the screen, you can see two pits: Wallace East, which is a gold pit with some copper, and Bena Vista, also a gold pit with some copper. The Wallace North mine, which is an iron sulfide copper gold resource of 0.79%, 1.79 million tonnes of at 1.31% copper and 0.78 grams per tonne gold. That was where we were mining late last year. Now, what we think that this is a much bigger system than the original Wallace North mine, which is still open at depth. And so there's this, what the Flem survey has shown, that there's these three high chargeability plates, which are conductivity trends that are more than 2 kilometres long. There's three of them, one after each other. And so this next round of drilling is going to focus on drilling through them and really giving us a good look about how does this system look like in terms of expansion. So if we go to the next slide, is a cross-section through those plates to give people a bit of an understanding. On the top right-hand side of each of the boxes, actually, you can see the existing Wallace North drilling. You can see that it's still open at depth, but then you've got these plates on either side, which are they're multiple conductive plates, and their potential for further discoveries of additional Wallace North-like copper systems within the area. Now, that program will be drilled for the rest of this week, and we'll have those results very soon to start talking to people about how the next step forward there. So if we go to the next slide, please. This is the Salisbury iron oxide copper IOCG targets. There's three specific areas where we did an IP survey. They sit around a JORC resource from 2004. There's only been really shallow RAB drilling within that area, so it's typical around Cloncurry in particular is a very unexplored system. So we've gone back after we've done the surface mapping, done the IP survey, and now we've got drill targets to really go on and have a good look in this area. So there's three areas in particular we're looking at: Salisbury Main, the Gully, and Rallies. All of them are underexplored, and it's a very exciting period for the exploration team, because we're actually starting to drill holes through these zones which have been identified. So this IOCG target is one that to stay tuned and watch for, because there's a lot of high expectations about the results that we're going to see from here. Okay, next slide, please. In terms of our program, we've sort of covered what we're doing. We've got plenty on. The drill rigs is at Wallace North, heading to Salisbury. Once finished there, it's heading back to Mt Oxide. It's going to finish off that the holes from the three locations Barry talked about in the southern part of Aquila Prospect. The IP surveys, the guys arriving on site tomorrow just to start the IP survey at Mt Oxide around Aquila. Once we've targeted that, the idea will be to continue to drill out that target to really understand the full extent. Plenty happening, and we can't wait to start seeing some of those results come through. Next slide, please. Okay, so I guess, look, I'm here. I guess we'll wrap it up and hand back to Shae to see if there's any questions from what Barry and I have been through.
Yes, there's quite a few questions actually, and I've been writing my own ones as well. All right, so for everybody listening, we are going to start taking questions, and I have quite a few, so please pop your questions in the chat, or if you're on YouTube, pop them there, and anything we don't get to in today's webinar, we will answer in subsequent videos. All right, first and foremost, I'm going to start with you, Bevan. I've noticed that there seems to be quite a lot of targets here that are showing, some really impressive potential. We talk about finding mineralization where it wasn't previously known. Tell me, how do you prioritize all this exciting ground to explore?
Yeah, look, I find I end up being the wet blanket in the process, okay, because there's only so much you can do. You can't do everything all at once. So what the exploration geology team do is they come up with a list of, they do a rate and rank. So they look at all of the potential options, and then we rate and rank them for probability and success. And really do it on a risk base, risk reward base. And when we did the recapitalisation, we were able to really pull together that rate and rank very quickly and show if when we are funded, this is what we're going to focus on, and that result, the results that we're seeing are based on using that system. The entire portfolio is even bigger as well. So we're only talking about the ones which are drill ready. There's others that more on the ground type pre-work needs before we can do anything further.
Barry, I might throw your question if you don't mind, and it wouldn't mind just touching on the infill drilling ahead happening at Aquila. I know you mentioned that there is 1,200 metres of RC drilling to happen. How far apart will this spacing be, and what depths will you be targeting here?
Well, these positions will be about 1 kilometre south of the existing Aquila discovery holes at this stage. And these holes that we're planning are more or less about 100 metres apart. And we sort of are targeting defined, map structures in the area. And it's 3 drill locations. It's 4 holes in total that we're planning with 1,200 metres. And like we said, and we're hoping to sort of have some IP coverage over those areas prior to start drilling, so we will help refine the targeting. But so like I said, it's 1 kilometre south, and then the span of those 3 pads, it's probably about a 300 metre sort of strike coverage.
Okay, I might stay with you for this next question, Barry. But Bevan, feel free to jump in at the end of Barry's answer, or feel free to handball it if you need to, Barry. Vero and the Capricorn copper systems are showing a copper mineral zoning pattern. Where would Aquila be in this zoning pattern?
Yeah, well, at the top.
What do you mean by that?
All right, now, so it's at the top, which indicates sort of there is a nation, and then at the top it indicates that there's excellent depth and strike potential to the mineralization. So there is zonation that we've observed in the top portions of this ore body, but there's still more to explore and understand.
Again, while we're sticking with the geology, I've got a little bit of a theme happening here in the background. Does the geology seems different to Vero? Is Aquila a different style, and are there any analogues to it?
Yes, no, it's different to Vero. So Vero is largely, it's different in the way that Vero is a graphitic shale. That's the host rock and where we find the mineralization. Whereas what we're finding up at Aquila is that these are sandstones and quartzites and where we're finding the mineralization. So Aquila is a far better reference for Aquila, would sort of be the Mammoth and Esperanza deposits further down south, just based on the geology. However, what they do have in common is that they also share the same sort of dominant structural trend, which is the dormant faults.
Okay, I might come back to you for the moment, Bevan, but again, if you need to handball it to Barry, don't be afraid. So what does the strike extent of the mapped structural system and width of the zone? I'm not actually sure which particular part of the project it might be talking about there.
Yeah, so look, I guess Barry did cover that. So we think that the length of the strike length is, more than 2 kilometres. Obviously, we have to do this IP survey and drilling to confirm that. And look, it's more than 150 metres in some sections, up to 500 metres is what we're seeing. So, look, there's a lot of growth potential here. Based on the surface mapping and rock chip sampling and stuff like that we've done since since we've gone back and had a look at what we had historically done and based on the drill results recently that we've had.
Now, I'll stay with you, Bevan. I've got a couple of questions from a gentleman by the name of James. Thank you, James. These are some really great questions here. Let's start working through a couple of them. First of all, he's talking about the tonnage of cobalt. Like, are we able to ascribe some tonnage to this yet, or is it still too new to get to that?
So, look, it's an interesting story. The cobalt story is Vero is actually a high-grade cobalt resource as well. In fact, it's one of the largest high-grade system in Australia, and so look, we are seeing great results out of the holes that we've drilled so far at Aquila, and so at this stage, we haven't really done enough drilling to say that it's a major system, but it is very encouraging what we've seen. So to have a copper, cobalt, and silver deposit like we're seeing is a great thing. And cobalt's one of those things that, along with copper is a critical mineral and important to is of national importance.
Well, another mineral that is becoming increasingly important is silver. And this same question does come up again from James. This is, what is the mineralization of the silver? And is it a byproduct of the copper and the cobalt, or is it on its own?
Well, I'll answer that one. It's associated with the sulfides that we find the copper and cobalt in. So it's all a part of the same system at the end of the day. And it's the same as cobalt is to the copper, or the copper is to the cobalt. It's all found within the same mineral assemblage and the ore zone at the end of the day. So it's not a separate system.
I think this might refer to a few of all the projects grouped together. Now, you talk about how Barry, you talked about how many of the sites are opened at depth, which is fantastic. But just how deep does not ours, it's not like I'm out there with a rig. How deep does your known understanding of the mineralization run?
Well, at this stage, comfortably to about 170 meters, I'd be comfortable with where our mineralization is. It's still going a lot more at depth. But I suppose when it comes to mining, it's not so much depth. You try and stay away from depth if you can. It's at surface, and that's the most important thing, is that we can map it and we can see it at surface. We are seeing outcrops of boxwork and stuff like that, which we can see at surface. So that to me is more significant than the depth.
Bevan, I'm not going to pretend this question's absolutely coming from me. If this is being able to be mapped at surface and it's visible at surface, how come this area wasn't explored before? How has this been hiding in the desert?
That's one of those mysteries. Look, the previous owners of the lease package were confined to the Vero. I've spoken to geology team, they'd wanted to look elsewhere, but they just weren't able to. At True North Copper, look, we've committed to looking further, and to do it in a much a much more systematic and cost-effective way. And look, this whole both the Mt Oxide and Cloncurry region are really underexplored, and it's part of our business model is to change that, and that's what we're doing.
Just for everybody listening, we probably have about time for 5 more minutes of questions. So please submit your questions now. And as I said at the start, if we don't get to your questions today, we will answer them in later videos. I'm going to ask a question about the Mt Oxide tenement package. Basically, is this open up to other parts of exploration now? Can start with you, Barry?
Yes. Well, yes, it's all open up to exploration at this stage, and like Bevan said, we've taken a systematic approach, and it's a big area. It's 10 kilometers of strike that we've got to cover there, so it's not something where I can say that we've done all the initial work and we know where all the secrets are now hidden, and we're slowly uncovering them more and more as we go along, and finding new targets, and as we find new targets, we generate new ideas on how the mineralization was in place, and then we take those ideas and we backtrack and we start again, in terms of trying to find, and find new areas where this mineralization is hiding. The terms we use a lot around that style of deposit is that this is elephant country. There's definitely big deposits out there to be found, just doing basic systematic exploration, and that's the approach we've been doing with Global Ore Discovery, who've largely been in the field for us and done a lot of the work, and I think we're starting to show the results of systematic exploration.
We might get into some of the nitty-gritty questions now of how this exploration project might become a mine one day. First and foremost, one of the questions that has been submitted is, what is the final product of the copper that will be produced? Bevan?
Yeah, so look, I guess, how do you turn this into money? The 29 Metals have got a concentrator at Capricorn Copper. There's been one there for many years now. We think, the met testing work that we did at Vero suggests that, a standard flotation process would be suitable for this ore body. Obviously, we haven't done any met testing work of Aquila yet, but look, that's in our mind, that's likely. And so there's multiple options of how to take this forward. The Mount Isa number 4 concentrator is not that far away, and in fact, 29 Metals recently have sent some of their ore to that concentrator, because of the issues that they've been having with the flooding event that they had. There's of course the 29 Metals concentrator that's just right there, and in the future that it may or may not be part of the solution, and then look, the reason for us to continuing to search and explore in this region is to continue to build up the mineral inventory in this region. And so look, you can't rule out the fact that if we can find enough scale, that maybe we would need to build our own concentrator. So look, that's it's too early to say at this point, but there's plenty of options.
My next question is sort of an amalgamation of a couple of questions that have come in, and that is, obviously you're out in mining country. So essentially having the logistics nearby, does that help any, if we have got line of sight on a potential mine coming through, does that make it more feasible in the long run?
Yeah, I think so. Look, the reality is that there's a number of mining operations in the area, and miners, we tend to not necessarily collaborate and work with each other, but the reality is this region sorely needs that. And so look, if there was any into the future when you start to pull this all together, there is a requirement for everybody to work together. But there's been mining here for some time. There's a lot of infrastructure in place. There's roads back to Mount Isa. There's an airstrip not far away. There's existing mines. It's ready to be developed, and we're in the box seat.
Now, I won't reveal this person's name for the moment. I will keep them anonymous. But one of these questions that's come through is True North Copper still open to investors, for example, financial institutional bodies? Are you able to meet with investors who would like to talk to you in more detail about what's happening?
Yeah, look, it is one of the benefits of dealing with True North Copper and small players like us. Look, normally, if an investor reaches out to our communications persons, Sarah, look, and they want to speak to any of the team, we'll schedule something in. And look, I'm always happy to talk to investors. It gives me a great insight into what people are thinking about, and also gives me an opportunity to sort of explain, what we're up to and where we're going. So yeah, always happy to have a chat.
And for everybody listening, at the end of this webinar, we will share contact details and how you can get in touch with either Bevan or Sarah to learn more about what True North Copper is doing. And I think what might be our final question for today's session, that is news flow. I know it's been a heck of a 6 months for the team at True North Copper for the start of this year, but what can we expect to hear over the next 6 months and perhaps, into next year as well?
Yeah, Shae, look, it's not going to slow down in that respect. We committed to quite an extensive exploration program. We're still waiting for all the drilling results that from Mt Oxide that we've already drilled. We've got holes being drilled at Wallace North at the moment, holes being drilled at Salisbury. We're expecting further IP survey from Mt Oxide. And look, depending on the results of that, it'll flow into more drilling and more results. So look, there's plenty coming up.
That sounds fantastic. Listen, I think we've almost run out of time to take questions today. So for everybody who didn't get their question answered, please continue to leave comments and we will get them through to Bevan, and I'll probably ask them in a later video. Also to stand by and we'll get you contact details on how you can get in touch with Bevan and Sarah. Listen, Bevan and Barry, thank you so much for being here today. The future certainly looks bright for True North Copper, and thank you for those awesome pictures of rocks in the presentation. It was a pleasure to have you guys on.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
And that ends the webinar.